Mr. Barak, the elections in Israel this week produced a bit of a surprise. And it's going to take some time, I guess, for Mr. Netanyahu to form a new coalition, assuming he will. What caused this unexpected result, and in particular the rise of Mr. Lapid?
You know, first of all, it's a combination. It's not totally surprising. Netanyahu, as expected, won in the sense that he is going to be the prime minister, to establish the government, to call the shots in the coming 4 years. And basically it will be his government, not Lapid's government. But having said that, there is a kind of a wake-up call from the public, telling it, okay, we are the center-left party, ended up to be the second biggest one. We headed by a charming, capable young person who doesn't have executive experience, but got the support of the mainstream of Israel, especially the places like Tel Aviv or the main cities. And their call, he had to emphasize. One is a different redistribution of national wealth and even a political attention to the mainstream, to those stratas of the society who are working, productive, serving in the army, paying taxes. And another is the equalizing the burden of the Israeli society, especially the security burden, in the sense that he demands that Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, that were relieved practically from service, most of them, will serve in the armed forces in a way. That's a basic result.
What will it mean for relations with the Palestinians, do you think? Does it change Mr. Netanyahu's policy on that?
You know, I think that the right wing in Israel became stronger. Basically, Likud list is more right-wing than in the past, and the party right to it, the Zionist religious party, became surprisingly big, probably tripled its size. But having said that, the call from Lapid's party, the center, will end up, I believe, with a certain type of continuation of the policy. Netanyahu never hid his intention to reach a two-state solution. It's the formal position of the state of Israel, and Lapid will help it happen. The hope of right-wingers that in the new government they will have a ruling kind of position that dictate a more extreme right policy had been frustrated.
So can we expect to see a renewed push for, I mean, obviously Mr. Obama in the United States would like to see some progress on a peace treaty with the Palestinians. Does the election change the political dynamic there in Israel for that?
I don't think that it changed. I think that there is a widespread frustration from the Palestinian side in his unreadiness, lack of ripeness to move with painful concessions which are needed from both sides. I think that the Americans might not be ready to lead it, but they probably will leave it to the Europeans. But clearly, John Kerry, the new head of the State Department, will push for it. We know him for a long time. He showed a lot of interest. And I think that it's good for Israel. I think that trying to move forward with the Palestinians, even if we cannot promise a fully fledged peace agreement, is positive for Israel. It helps us. We owe it to ourselves. It's not a zero-sum game. We are not doing a favor to the Palestinians. We are trying to solve a main issue that should disturb the minds of Israelis. And I think that the support from the world makes it possible that something will happen. I hope personally that it will happen.
Let me move on to Iran, if I may. Obviously, there are differing interpretations of the intelligence of where Iran is in its nuclear program. What's your sense? Is Iran on the threshold of becoming nuclear weapons capable?
I think we all share the same intelligence. I met here with Amano, the head of the IAEA. I met with several foreign ministers. The leading intelligence communities in the world see eye to eye the situation. The Iranians are determined to find the right timing to move forward, and they continue with gradual moving in this direction. We use the same rhetoric. All of us, including the American president, say loud and clear, we will not allow Iran to turn into nuclear military power. And we all say that no option, including military option, should be removed from the table. The problem is what to do about it, how to translate it into action. I think that there is still a very limited room for diplomacy and sanctions. Personally, I do not believe that they will work, but I can understand those who want to exhaust any other alternative before they try to contemplate something more drastic. I think that the first months of this year, before election in Iran, will be used for attempts to move on the P5+1, probably alternative manners. It's important that before election, coming April this year, the Iranian people and government will be facing a clear choice. Either you go with the world and stop your nuclear military activity, or else you might face much tougher sanctions or even worse. I think that without this clear choice to be made, Iranians might dance on both weddings. They might end up on one end standing firm again, defying the whole world practically, not just Israel, and at the same time having the world crawling to their doorstep to talk with them. That's not healthy. So I feel that toward the second half of this year, probably it will create a more kind of clear crossroad where both Iran and the world will have to decide what next, probably including Israel.
Is 2013 then the year when Iran is going to be stopped in its nuclear tracks?
You know, I thought that it should be 2012. And in my judgment, it's a pity that we couldn't collectively achieve it. It clearly, with higher probability, will be 2013, but probably some gambit by the Iranians, if they stop any enrichment and move backward for a year or two, just because they're afraid that they will be dealt with more harshly, it can be delayed to 2014. I cannot assure you.
Can I ask you quickly about Syria? Somebody, I think from Qatar this week in Davos, said that the prospect in Syria is right now we have disorganized chaos, but what we can look forward to after Assad is at least organized chaos. What's your sense of what, first of all, how long Assad can stay there, and secondly, what will follow him?
I think that he won't be there in 2014. I cannot predict. You know, one of the lessons I've learned from the last 2 years in the Middle East is to be extremely modest in predictions, especially about the future. Look what happened in Egypt. You know, Mubarak and Omar Sima, they had about 500,000 people working for them just in internal security to make sure that nothing will happen in Tahrir Square, and look how quickly they were deposed. And see what happens in Syria now. Who could predict that this guy will spend 2 years massacring 50,000, probably 60,000 of his own people and still be there in power? We have another lesson, which is that even if unspeakable atrocities are taking place, and the whole world doesn't even need intelligence because you see it on the screens, and we also use the same rhetoric, it's totally unacceptable. That does not mean that the world will find a sense of direction, the unity of purpose, the political will, and the readiness to coordinate concrete action to put an end to those atrocities. So it creates a warning for us Israelis when people around the world are telling us, including senior leaders and former leaders, don't worry. If Iran, for example, cross the threshold and start to charge toward nuclear military capability, of course the whole world will do something. Nothing could be taken for granted, especially when it comes to the Middle East. And the third observation that I have for the last 2 years, including in Syria, those who are telling us all around the world that the top flow of the causal chain that leads all this troubled landscape in the Middle East, there stands the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. If you can just solve it, everything else will be calm. It's not true. There are debts currencies, historic debts currencies in the Middle East that are beyond our control. I believe that Iran would have tried to become a nuclear power even if we have solved our conflict with the Palestinians a decade ago. And that Muslim brothers might take over in Egypt 8 years after the founder, Hassan al-Banna, passed away, even if we had never had a conflict with the Palestinians. I don't underestimate the importance of solving this conflict, especially for Israel and for its position, and for the future of both people. And I did a lot. I took huge political risks, probably paid the price for them, trying to achieve exactly that. But I do not buy the idea that everything, every trouble in the Middle East has to be blamed for this important issue, however important it is.
Final question. As you're stepping down as Defense Minister, do you, as you look back on Mr. Netanyahu's prime ministership, would you say Israel is safer now than when he took office?
I think that we had been when he took office, and we are still the most powerful nation, 1,000 miles around Jerusalem. I was his Minister of Defense all along these years, and even before, so clearly I feel that we are going from strength to strength. We basically solidified our presence there in terms of military and strategic advantages or positioning. We are strong. And of course, Netanyahu as a prime minister has a role in it, a leading role, and he deserves the credit. We drew the world attention to the Iranian issue. We prepared our own capabilities. I believe that indirectly we encourage others to create their own contingencies for the case physical means should be used. And even in regard to Syria, we now all focused on how to avoid this total chaos, especially where there are a huge arsenal of chemical warfare materials and means there. In this regard, Netanyahu deserves and his government deserves credit. And I believe that we will get even stronger and safer. But having said that, we should be able to recognize that the strength of a nation, especially in this troubled corner of the world, does not stem just from its military might. It won't suffice. We need the other parts of it, the other aspects. We need the political process. We need to find a way to push to the surface the common interest we have with many Arab moderates in the world to block Islamist extremism and to block Iran, which is a Shiite power, non-Arab, from becoming the hegemon of the Gulf and a nuclear power. We have a lot of common interests that cannot be exposed or pushed to the surface before we made a major step forward with the Palestinians, with the backing of the rest of the world. And of course, we have a vibrant economy, and we operate extremely well compared to OECD countries during this crisis, because we are kind of a dinghy boat, not a super tanker. We are much more flexible, eruption of talent, of creativity, of entrepreneurial spirit. And in spite of everything around, a kind of spirit of dynamism and resilience within Israel helps us to navigate both external threat as well as economic and even internal tensions, challenges.
Ehud, Barak, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you.